Hey everyone, I am the TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where today we're here to spend far too long analysing a 20-second clip. But can you blame us? Because Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Wave 4 DLC, Shulk, Rex, Alvis, holy shit.
It's crazy. I mean,
It
we
is.
did not expect, we were just talking about this, but we didn't expect this to happen so soon. We were not prepared for Wave 4 information in the slightest, but it gives us a lot of time to speculate.
It definitely does, and that's what we're going to do today. Of course, if you want to see our initial reactions from the Direct, that is up on the channel, so you can watch us freaking out suitably. We also, of course, there was Wave 3 stuff announced, but seeing as that comes out literally the day after we're recording this, there was no point analysing that, so we'll just give our thoughts probably in the main podcast next month, once we've played it all.
Yeah.
But for today, we are going to look at all this stuff from that 20 seconds. We're going to sort of give just our general impressions now we've had some time to think about it. Maybe give a few theories and possibilities as to what we could see from this DLC. And as always, there will be timestamps in the description below if you want to check out any of the different sections. But let's just start things off. We're going to break the 20 seconds down bit by bit. And the first main segment is, of course, the madness, where we see Shulk and Rex confronting Alvis. And where do we even start with this? I think maybe
I guess the first scene, the first frame.
Yeah. Alvis.
I mean, when we in our reaction video to this, my immediate thought was Zanza, because I didn't look at who the figure was. I just looked at the background and those are Zanza's wings.
Exactly.
And then it's oh, he's got the original Monado and is Alvis. And it's what? That's crazy.
It's, of course, he's got, the Aegis necklace core crystal from that he had in Definitive Edition, sort of tying 1 and 2 together here. But I mean, I should have said this earlier. Obviously, there'll be spoilers for all 3 games here. That sort of goes without saying, but I'll just preface that anyway. But I mean, last we saw Alvis, he sort of granted Shulk, he said, gave Shulk the option to make his wish, and said his thing about I see futures converging together, and then he was just gone. So why is he in the first place back, and why is he an antagonist? It was not a direction I could see coming, but at the same time, if you're going to do some world-bending shenanigans of bringing things together, Alvis does make sense to be there, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, ever since Xenoblade 1 and 2 were out, there's been unlimited conversations about is Alvis on TOS, is he the third Aegis? Then when Definitive Edition came out and he had the Aegis necklace, it was oh, well, it's basically everything but confirmed at this point. So it's interesting to have him be brought back here as kind of, in a way, the strongest one, the one who helped Shulk create this new world. But it seems again, he's on the opposing side this time, and there's loads of theories about why that is, and the nature of Alvis, and how he could have been brought back like this. It's super interesting, but I'm happy to see him return. He is, of course, a fan favourite.
Definitely, and maybe at sort of the end of the section we'll go a bit more into what the situation is here. But I do want to move on to our next character look at here, which is, of course, Shulk, who's got a new design. He's got his custom-built Monado from Definitive Edition, Future Connected. Yeah. He also, I mean, especially compared to Rex, I'm trying to figure out what age he is here, because he doesn't look as old as you think he would be, does he?
No, he's not significantly older, but I mean, he's very clearly aged, but it's not by that much. And this will tie into the possibility of the nature of Ionios, but more importantly, it's I don't know. I would maybe take him for being. I mean, it's tough to say, really. Late 20s.
Yeah, but Shulk. I mean, Rex looks older, and if the timelines take place at the same time, which we assume they do from the end of Xenoblade 2, where we hear Rex beating the final boss or Shulk doing about the same time Rex does, you kind of wonder what that's about. Or maybe it's just, anime character designs. They just wanted Rex to look significantly older, and he's got the facial hair and everything, you know. He's clearly gone full Giga Chad. So, on that note, Jesus Christ, Rex, what a glow up.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was talking about him being a Chad at the end of the game, of course.
Yeah.
And we kind of, I mean, we saw his design there. Like, we've literally seen the design already, but you kind of didn't get to see it in full force, which we do here. And wow, it's such a glow up. Really impressed.
Yeah. I mean, this is a step up from his from the design we see in the picture. Now he's got like the facial hair. He's looking a bit more intense here, which of course wielding the two Aegis blades, which is something we saw in his statue. In what it was assumed to be his statue, and it's now pretty much confirmed to be that it's mentioned he wielded two blades on the battlefield. But seeing it in action, it's badass. There's no other way to put it, is there? I mean,
it looks so cool, and I'm really interested to see how, when we maybe see it in like an action scene, how he uses both. Because, of course, in Xenoblade 2, the only time Rex dual-wielded is when he was using Rock's weapon for like one cutscene. So it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we could. There's questions about like what is the situation at the end of Xenoblade 2. We still don't know like how they've got both. You know, he's got both their blades now. Of course, we saw them both at the end, but we don't really know how the world of Xenoblade 2 works. But we don't really need to. Just he has the two swords from both of them, and he's going to use them like a badass.
We just won't be told. I guess we'll see. But one of the interesting things is in the frame where you do see Rex and you can kind of see Mithra's sword a bit more. You notice you can't really see like a significant conduit design. Now I need to check, but I don't remember if Mithra's sword had a conduit design on it or not.
I feel like it did.
It did. I've just checked it. It definitely did. But for some reason here, you can't see it. I don't know if that's just like a visual thing where it's just the angle or something like that. But I did think it was interesting to note that you can't see the conduit symbol anymore.
You are definitely right. It seems to... I mean, I don't know if it's just like maybe it was on one side or something, but the spot where I expect it to be is just like a standard green line. So that is interesting. I don't know if that's to do with the... Maybe it's just the way they were in the new world of Xenoblade 2, once they got rid of the old one, it works a little differently. Maybe it's something to do with Alvis being there, but it's anyone's guess at this point.
Related. I wonder if they are in Ionios, then maybe those aren't like Pyro and Mithra's blades in the Xenoblade 2 sense. It's that in the Xenoblade 3 sense, this is just Rex's blades that he's able to pull out of thin air. Who knows? I mean, that's unlikely, but at this point, it could be anything.
That's true. I mean, we don't know exactly how Rex and Shulk fit into Ionios. Like, and I guess we can get onto this now. Like, when does this take place? Because is this like just before the worlds merge, and the worlds merging has something to do with Alvis, and that causes it to converge back again, or is this in Ionios itself? But early days, because one thing I do want to note here is that we have two statues. Let me bring up the names here. We have the statue of the founders Cassini and Reed, or Ride, however it's pronounced, where it doesn't actually show the founders themselves, but their mentors. And one of them, of course, the one who was assumed to be Rex, is like carrying two swords. But also mention he's missing an eye, which we don't see here. So clearly, that's at a later point.
Yep.
And then the statue who we assume to be Shulk, but he looked quite different. As far as I can recall from looking at the statue, the one that we thought was Shulk had like longer hair. He had an arm missing, replaced by a mechanical arm, which again we don't see happening here. So clearly this takes place, if it is in Ionios, it's early days Ionios, before that happens. But I'm starting to think at this point, maybe it's actually taking place before the worlds converge. I think I'm leaning towards that, but I don't know. It's tough to say.
It's difficult, because based on the existence of these guys being here, Shulk and Rex don't look like they're part of the Ouroboros cycle here. Like, this looks like it's something completely different. But at the same time, when you look at the Ouroboros the founder statues, I should say, that very clearly does take place during the Ouroboros cycle and Mobius and everything, the world of Ionios. So it's looking very likely that this could be the case now. What I think is a possibility is that maybe Rex and Shulk are not playable, and this scene is like one of the opening scenes of the Wave 4 DLC. And like we just see this, and maybe Shulk and Rex get like, I don't know, wiped out or injured as we see. And then it goes into like the main 6 gameplay, and like these two are just side characters. I'm wondering, but even then, I don't know how that would play into it, because if these guys aren't part of the cycle and the founders are, then how does it all work together? It's so confusing.
Yeah, like, I mean, of course, there's things like when Melia and Nia transferred over to Ionios, they weren't part of the cycle. So I'm guessing maybe because of what's happening with Alvis here, maybe Rex and Shulk are drawn into it the same, in a similar capacity. Of course, that raises questions of where are Pyro and Mithra going to be there? Are we going to see like Fiora or any of the other characters? Why are they not part of it? The way the cycle works is so ambiguous, and even as we learn more, it probably still will be. But either way, it does seem that when they get to Ionios, they fight. They're older. They're not like part of the main cycle, which is probably why we don't see them in the future. Because when they're gone, and they don't have longer lifespans like Melia and Nia do, of course. But I do have a theory about how they might show up in the game potentially. This is just an idea, but assuming it takes place in the same way that the gameplay takes place the same way it does in Xenoblade 3, where you've got your 6 main party members being the 6 founders. Maybe Shulk and Rex act as heroes in that 7th slot. And you can have them...
Interesting.
And maybe, I don't know if you can learn their class or if that's a thing. I don't know if classes will be in the DLC. I'm kind of thinking they won't be, but actually no, maybe they will. Who knows?
It's tough to say.
There's also it's also just meant to be there was a statue of a 7th founder, which has been erased, possibly intentionally. So I don't know if they could be a hero or something as well. But that's my main theory as how they might be there in the gameplay sense, because it mentions them fighting against Mobius in the statues of the founders. It specifically calls that out, and a few other details like Shulk being a father figure to the whoever the founder of Reed is, and raising her despite not being blood related. So that's another thing which is, I'm guessing, happens exclusively in Ionios, but who knows what that's about. But that's my best guess for how they might fit into the wider story. Potentially, but it could go any way.
Yeah, there's so many different approaches they could take here. And of course Alvis's existence being there sort of adds to that, where my current working theory is perhaps that I think I read it somewhere, but I can't remember where for the life of me, that Alvis's will, or Shulk's will at the end of Xenoblade 1, Alvis is there to carry it out. As like, this is a boundless world or whatever. And then it's based on the will of everyone is kind of what they decide at the end. Like the world's not to be decided by gods, it's to be decided by each and every person, or whatever Shulk says.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that, everyone's unconscious collective said, we're anxious, we want to create Ionios as like a forever world. That was what created Xenoblade 3's world. Shulk and Rex and anyone else who's aware of it is obviously like, well, this is wrong. This isn't how it was meant to go. So Alvis is kind of re-entered as like, you two are trying to break the will of the people and go against it, because this is what everyone wants. Therefore, I'm gonna get rid of you. So maybe he's acting upon that instinct of he needs to carry out the will of the general people rather than what specifically Shulk and Rex think is right.
That's definitely...
Yeah, that doesn't help with the timeline, though, is the problem.
No, but I like what you're saying. That's definitely very plausible. Of course, it's revealed towards the end that Alvis, he is a machine, and unlike Pyra and Mithra, who in the world of Xenoblade 2 are given lives and allowed to develop as people, Alvis never really gets that. And even Rex calls him out in this, says there's no use getting through to him, he's a soulless machine or something like that.
Yeah.
So the fact that Alvis, he's neither good or evil, but he acts the way that he's programmed to do so, or is inherently what the people want or something, and that's why they have to go against him. I think that would definitely fit. I do want to also mention one theory I've seen floating around, which is, I know you mentioned before, Kai, that in Xenoblade 3 that we have console Z. Is there a console A? And people have brought up the idea of Alvis being related to that. Of course, I don't know how that would work. I'm not sure he would fit as a console, but it is interesting that we have Z and now we have an A. There's potential for that. I just wanted to...
Yeah. I mean, when I was playing Xenoblade 3, I fully thought that, like, Z wouldn't be the final boss. I thought that there would be a new console A that appears, and then slowly over time I just realised, well, that's not going to happen. And then it was really odd to me when I was told that A is the only console not to appear. I thought that's very deliberate, and that's going to be Wave 4. So, come Wave 4 trailer and we get Alvis. I mean, it just feels... You know, on top of being like the first letter, and it's like, you know, he's here in the beginning, he's gonna proclaim the end or whatever. It just feels like it's all wrapped together too nicely to not be a coincidence to me. Maybe I'm just copium, but like, it feels so plausible that I don't think I'm making this up.
No, I think that definitely fits. And yeah, altogether, there's just so much exciting about that. The fact we're getting this... You know, what fans have wanted to see Shulk and Rex together. But I think it was so smart as well to not have it in the main game. To have the game be its own thing and get attached to these characters with smaller cameos and references. And then have the DLC be where everything comes together like crazy. I think that's very smart and it's going to be wild. But before we move on to the next bit, is there any other last things or thoughts you want to say about this bit with Shulk, Rex and Alvis?
Just that I agree with that decision. Like you were saying, is like the way that Xenoblade 3 did things. It still links to the other games, but it very much succeeded in making itself an independent, standalone game, which I appreciate because the amount of pressure they must have felt to just make a Xenoblade 1 and 2 homage for the whole game must have been very strong. And yeah, I like that they have instead devoted the DLC to this, and you see them canonically join forces here. Of course, Noah isn't there to join them, but like we have, let's just call him Old Noah, I guess, at this point. So, you know, I like that they've done it that way. I think they made the right choice, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how like these three characters are going to be reintroduced and sort of act with each other.
Absolutely. And one last thing on Shulk, his little poncho thing, I like that. It's a cool design. So...
Oh, yeah, their outfits look amazing. Rex's looks so much better as well. And the other thing I just realised is, do you think they'll be called Shulk, Rex, and Alvis? I mean, Alvis is probably more likely, but do you think they'll be called Shulk and Rex, or do you think they'll be called, what is it, like Reed and Cassini?
Interesting. Well, Reed and Cassini are meant to be the founders, right? And these aren't the founders. These are the mentors of the founders. So
that's true. That's a good point. Actually, I forgot that.
So I'm assuming not, unless the founders, unless the people, their students, got the name from them and took it. It's possible, but I'm going to assume they'll just to be Shulk and Rex, probably.
I suppose as a follow-up to that, do you think the other characters, aka the Vandham guy, do you think they will be called like Vandham, Reed, Doyle, Rhodes, whatever? Or do you think that, you know, that's obviously a surname, so do you think they'll instead have first names that they're referred to?
That's a good point, because we don't know how they got those names exactly. Is it just their surname, or is it like their first name that they took as a family name? I mean, names are always... Some characters have surnames, some characters don't in Xenoblade, you know, it's just one of those things where it's whatever the plot wants. I don't know, I get the sense... My gut instinct says they might just refer to them by their first names. I mean, by the names Vandham, Cassini, Doyle, whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe, even if they have first names, maybe they just call them by their surnames. I know that's also a thing in Japan, isn't it, where they often refer to people by surnames. So
that's true. Yeah.
That's sort of my gut instinct, but it'll be interesting to see if we do get new names from them as well.
Yeah.
But before we get a bit more into the whole Vandham stuff, we do get one more, sort of our first look at the world we're going to be exploring. because you can't tell anything from the random void of the first shot. So, but we get a look at what seems to be the return of Bionis Leg as part of Ionios. I mean, you can see in the background the giant hand of Moradane and bits of what look like the city of Morafa, what's it called? Macfa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to be part of Ionios, but returning to Bionis Leg, I mean, it's like the most iconic area in Xenoblade. It makes so much sense, and
yeah,
I'm just thinking of the music remixes we're gonna get. Hot damn!
Oh Lord. You know what I really want? Like, they're not gonna do it, but what I really want is like a battle theme. Is the Xenoblade Chronicles medley that they have in Smash. The Gower Plains opening to that is amazing, and we've never gotten a full version of that. I don't think it's going to happen, but man, I would love that.
That would be sick. I would love that. Either way, we're going to get some bangers, that's for sure. But
yeah,
I mean, we see what looks like a lot of the iconic bits from Bionis Leg. We see the iconic Ragwell Bridge, right, where Juju crashes his buggy. The buggy's not there.
Yeah, you can see the buggy on the bridge.
Oh, you can! Wow!
That's so amazing. That's one thing I've seen people saying is the buggy's on the bridge. Is there a chance that Ortiz isn't Shulk and that mechanic is instead Juju? Especially since his whole legacy is that he rebuilt the city. And like Colony 6 reconstruction. I mean, I'm probably not, but like, oh my god, it would be so funny if we had playable Juju.
That would honestly be because the founder of House Ortiz he looks Shulk-like, but he's clearly not Shulk because that's sort of assumed to be the Reed one. So if it was like Juju, who's just taken inspiration from Shulk, and that's why he's dressed similarly, and he is a mechanic who built. Oh god, I didn't.
So good.
I thought you said that as a joke, but now I'm believing it, which is the scary part.
It's plausible. That's the scariest part. But
at the very least. I hope his buggy crash area is like a landmark or something.
Yeah, please. Juju's crash landmark unlocked.
I also want to mention that you can see what looks like a big monkey, possibly territorial Rotbar, exploring the area. I mean, if that's the reason why he isn't in Xenoblade 3, because he was in the Bionis Leg part of Ionios, and in that, whatever happens to that, I'll accept that. I think the lore works perfectly there. Make that territorial Rotbar. It's their chance to redeem.
I was upset when we had Jingoistic, whatever his name is.
Yes, Giganticus or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like the real monkey to return. But yeah, the area, there's a lot to unwrap here, I think. Where sort of starting from where it's most zoomed in, you can see that this isn't the original Gower Plains. The area has been remodeled. Probably just to be like more enjoyable exploration wise, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But you can see, of course, Monkey in the distance. There looks to be some kind of camp setup as well, I've noticed. So possibly that's like just a station for people, travellers or whatever. Yeah, the bridge is there as normal. One of the most interesting things to me, though, is that this clearly isn't all of Gower Plains, because, again, the layout isn't done like that. I don't think that this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
It will only be a section of it. What's more interesting is if you zoom out, it's like where this takes place in Ionios is the question, and we sort of talked about this after the reaction, but it looks like this is a whole separate landmass in Ionios, kind of near the Dinar Desert, because you can kind of you see what I think might be the Dinar Desert on the right.
It's tough to say, yeah.
It's really difficult to tell. That I could be completely off, but
I do wonder if, because I'm trying to look and see, like, is this mixed with an area from Xenoblade 2? You know, obviously we already had the obvious one would be Gormott, but we've already had Gormott. We know where that is. So, like, what's an iconic place they could bring from to, like, sort of mix it into? There's some interesting bits, like, in the big zoomed out shot.
If you look, zoom out and go to 1080p. This is something I just realised about 5 minutes ago. On the left of this landmass, if you zoom in, there's some kind of, like, tower thing there on this landmass.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what is that? It's probably an
It's
area
hard.
we can explore.
Hmm. It's
And
very
it doesn't
interesting.
look like anything. It looks original.
It's nice to see, like, we sort of assumed it, like how Torna had Torna itself as a new place, and then you
Hmm.
go back to Gormott. We sort of assumed that we'd have a new area, but it's really cool to see that we're going to be exploring a new place. I wonder what happens to this also. Like, why isn't it there
Hmm.
in the main game? Does it get destroyed? Is this literally going to be another Torna where the main place just gets decimated
Maybe.
at the
I
end?
mean, I guess one theory is that like there is something like the biggest annihilation event known to anyone in Ionios,
Oh,
and it
that's
just
true.
eradicates
Yeah.
the whole thing. Outside of that, I mean, who knows?
I guess the other question is,
Um,
do you think we'll be going back to another area, or is there any places you think you'd like to return to back then? Because the world is
ooh.
probably largely unchanged. I mean, the whole point of Ionios is it's eternal and it doesn't change.
Hmm.
But I guess maybe if we go to the original city, which we know is located in Erythea Sea, that's a possibility. But it
Yeah.
depends. We know the founders fight during they defend they help the survivors from the original city and they help build a new one. So we don't know.
Hmm.
Does this take place before then, during then? We could see the original city in here. So
Yeah. There's so many different angles they could still come at it with. Where
yeah,
I mean, the difference is that with Torna's DLC, which is kind of similar, being a prequel type thing that's referenced in the
mm,
game, um, is with Torna we got a ton of cutscenes from Torna in the main game,
yeah,
and we got a lot of lore and very ingrained parts of that in the main story that they kind of all they had to really do was like follow that thread through and make their own additions. Whereas
yeah,
this, they all we know is like the general descriptions of the founders and like
yeah.
vaguely what happened. So they could choose any point in time during that story and just make a fully fledged plot from it, and I think that they'll do
True.
a good job of it. Obviously, um, so it's
Mm,
interesting how much creativity they've given themselves here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do, and I'm really intrigued now about what that tower in the distance might be.
yeah. There's a lot to unpack here. And obviously, I'm sure come a few months' time, July or whatever, we'll get E3 season, we'll get our big blowout trailer where we'll get to see a little bit
Hmm.
more. But until then, I like the way that this is built up a lot. Like we've got the fact that they teased it with just the founder statues in the original game,
Hmm.
and we were thinking like, what is this? What does this mean? And it never got answered. But now we're
Yeah.
starting to see drip feeds of it, and we're starting to learn. And I hope they don't reveal too much, to be honest, because discovering that in the DLC is going to be really fun. It's definitely going back to
Yeah.
Bionis Leg is going to be great.
Yeah, and it's really surprising that they showed off this early, but I suppose it means that at a later point, maybe in like a summer direct or something like that, we may just get a sort of a better look at this where, we will see what the gameplay's like and that sort of thing. Um,
Hmm.
but either way, yeah, the environment is looking very good.
Yeah, we'll definitely be interested to get our grips on get a grip on that. But anything else on Bionis Leg or the little area we see, Kai, before we move on to the next bit?
Just that when I've been zooming out like as much as I can while it's still fading from the previous Alvis scene, I've been looking
Yeah.
off in the distance, like at the very top of the screen in the far right, and I'm trying to figure out like, is there anything in the bigger picture that we're still missing here? But it's unfortunately all a bit too blurry to really see. But
Hmm.
I'm really wondering if there's like something huge in the background that we're missing that could really answer these questions for us. And I don't think I'm going to get those answers today, but like, yeah, a lot of intrigue on what the exact nature of the world's going to be in this game. Looking forward to exploring it.
Absolutely. And of course, what we end the trailer on is a very quick bit where we see who is presumably the founder of House Vandham, who was also
Hmm.
presumably a descendant of N in some capacity, given the lookalikes to Noah. It seems like a new voice actor as well, which makes sense because it's not directly a
Hmm.
version of Noah. But we see him briefly. He says something. What was it about? Some
I think
killing
killing
his
Grandad wasn't
grandfather?
enough for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes into what, for a moment, looks to be he's starting an Ouroboros form, which, from the very brief glimpse of it we see, reminds me of Mio's, or at least he's an.
You can see the
along the line
ears of Mio's. Yes.
Yeah, so it's probably the founder. Which one is she? I got Doyle, who was also assumed to be Vandham's sister, and is a Mio lookalike. So
that makes us wonder. I mean, who's this guy's granddad gonna be? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If it's very clear that he's got to be a descendant of N and the original city founders. Again, we don't know exactly where this takes place in the timeline because it could, like you said, it could fit anywhere. But his granddad who's he talking to? Is he talking to N, who destroyed the city?
Well, anyone who's part of the cycle. Let me just make sure I'm getting my lore right. So the original founders, they're the first people who had Ouroboros, right?
Yes.
Were they the first people to have regular lifespans in this world? I can't remember for the life of me.
No, well, we don't know exactly whereabouts, but they are descendants from N and M.
Right.
Which means they're not actually, because we saw N and M hanging out with the city folk. Well, actually, when we saw past versions of N and M, they were hanging out with what looked like city folk. So I'm assuming they were people who were born normally and lived normally. But
right, okay.
We don't know.
Because I'm thinking the existence of a granddad implies that they are. It implies that he's not part of Kevis or Agnes, because people from Kevis or Agnes wouldn't have a granddad.
Yeah. But they're definitely. It mentions they're descended from the original city. It does specifically mention that in the statues.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, so we know that much. That, with the exception of two, Ortiz and Rhodes were a Keves soldier and an Agnes soldier who were freed from the Flame Clock by the other founders, and somehow lived to 80, which we don't know how, seeing as they were Keves and Agnes soldiers. So that's a mystery, which I'm guessing we'll find out more about. But
I mean, I like the design. I'll say that. I think it's a good sort of remix on Noah. Looks good.
It does, yeah. I like. He's sort of got. Of course, people compare him to, isn't it, Faye from Xenogears as well,
which is Wong, I think it is.
Yeah, which is a neat comparison. I haven't played that, so I don't know the details there. Maybe one day they'll release that and Xenosaga.
I think it's just mainly the cowlick in the front.
It is.
The statue looks a lot more like Faye than this guy does here, but. I mean, the other thing I like about this, by the way, is this game's already graced us with having a playable Vandham. Well, I say playable as a hero, but there's very much a chance that this guy's the main character of Wave 4, meaning that Vandham is the main character of the DLC, and I'm loving the Vandham love. I'll say that.
Absolutely. And an interesting thing we see, you can kind of see it very briefly in this picture, but in this trailer, but you see it more in a official tweet released by on Nintendo social media and Monolith Soft social media, where he's got the red armor around his arm, a bit like Noah has when he draws the Origin Sword. But interestingly, is that we also know that Vandham is a fist fighter. He uses martial arts, not a blade, which or at least not a sword, what's her name, Gondor does as well. So does he unless I'm overthinking it and it's actually just wrappings like Gondor has, but it seems to be the mechanical bit. So maybe he has that similar sheath technology, the Iron Man style thing, but uses it on his knuckles instead when he fights. I don't know.
Going through this trailer, you can see on one of his arms. He has, wrappings on, but I think those wrappings might be the same, origin material that Noah's blade... Yeah. Well, I say origin material. Like how Noah's red thing becomes a hand-arm thing for him, and it's like a sheath. I think it's the same for Noah. You can see it on his hand there. That's going to be really fun to play as.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just... I mean, for a start, it's cool. It reminds me of, typically your main character's a sword wielder, but in Torna you got Laura, who, when she's not using Jins, just goes in all crazy kicks and whatnot. And now we've got a fist fighter as our main one, which is, it's a nice change, nice mix-up. That makes him feel...
I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, it makes him feel, again, less like just another Noah, because he isn't. He's not a version of N or Noah. He's a descendant. So
yeah. Plus, he's dripped out here. Like, I mean, I personally, my favourite colour scheme is red and black. So the black jacket and sort of the red undershirt, it looks so cool. I'm so here for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
If I was ever to do a cosplay, then that would be it, I think. I just need to grow my hair out again, bloody hell.
One day, Kai. One day we'll do a proper BunchaJokahs cosplay video. It'll happen. Yeah. I'll dress as the sister for you. So of course, I'll look fabulous.
Brilliant. But yeah, I think the other thing I did want to draw attention to that I've not seen anyone talk about is during all of Xenoblade 3, there was one voice actor that I kept, or just one voice that I kept pointing out as like one that I quite liked and kept on being caught out by. And it was, I don't even know who it was, but they were the Avenger in Teach's Ascension Quest, and they appeared in Melia's Ascension Quest as well.
Oh yeah.
He's got like a very recognisable voice once it's pointed out. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that Vandham here is voiced by that guy, because that guy had no major character role in Xenoblade 3, despite appearing in multiple side quests and having, to me, quite a striking voice. And I think this might be the same voice. I could be wrong, but like, just one thing that I haven't seen people talk about.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've have to listen to that myself, but I mean, they often, for this kind of thing, they might have someone in it. You know, we noticed like you could notice like in Xenoblade 2, Morag's voice actress voicing some random scientist on the beanstalk, and all sorts of things like that. You know, so it could just be, I wouldn't expect it to be story related in any way, but they might be the same actor.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a chance that, I mean, it's not, I don't know how the recording process works. Maybe we need to go and ask Sky or something, but like, if they did record all of Wave 4's lines alongside the main game, then I do wonder if there's a chance of like, they told this guy, well, you're the main character of the DLC, so in the main game we're just going to give you some sidelines. I mean, I could be wrong because the voice sounds slightly different, but it just immediately reminded me of it, and so I think I'm going to just throw it out there in case it does end up being the case.
No, yeah, it's definitely an interesting theory. It'll definitely be interesting to find out who voices these. I mean, that Vandham and all of the other founders and whatnot as well. And who's the new voice for Rex? Because I'm assuming it's not Al Weaver. It doesn't sound like him, but...
Yeah, we kind of can't tell, because I wonder if it's just Al Weaver doing a different voice, because he's forgotten how Rex has worked, or like, you know, he's been told to make it different. Or it could just be someone else entirely, yeah. Maybe Al Weaver didn't want to go back after all the hate that he got from Xenoblade 2, which was, again, kind of unwarranted, but anyway, that's a whole different tangent.
Yeah, I guess my last thoughts here is looking at I've sort of got some notes here on the descriptions of the founders, and it specifically mentions a few things about Vandham and Doyle that I feel like might come up in this. Like, yes. So it mentions that Vandham used the power of Ouroboros to fight against N and protect the original city, which we know is destroyed, but I'm guessing he helped survivors. So I feel like the fact it mentions that and him using Ouroboros then, and the whole thing of like killing Grandad, maybe he's talking to N, killing his descendants or whatever, I feel like that's got to happen in this. Right. And it also mentions things like his sister, or who's presumed to be his sister, Doyle, founder Doyle, is that after the original city fell, they went missing, they were lost, but then they eventually joined the original founders. So that feels like something that would be a quest in the game, is finding Doyle, you know, and where's she gone. This all feels like set up to stuff they've established, so I feel like we'll see those details in the game, likely, and that might be how you sort of build your party. Maybe you won't have the full party from the start, I don't know, but it also mentions, like I said earlier, the two ones who are Keves and Agnes soldiers. It mentions them fighting each other, and then the founders stopping them and freeing them before they become Ouroboros, which I assume we'll see happen in the game as well. So it might be like you build your party as you go along thing, a bit more traditionally, as opposed to a here's everyone at once like we got in 3 mostly.
Yeah, I think it'll be kind of similar to, I mean, not similar to Torna, but yeah, you slowly go along and get your party members where, you know, maybe you start with Vandham and Doyle on their travels pretty early in the game. They come across the other, 2 of the founders that are fighting each other, Rhodes and Ortiz, like, you know, they come across them and break up the battle. And then they come across Cassini and Reed in whatever form. So I feel like, the first, like, half of the DLC or so will be travelling around, meeting them all, that sort of thing.
It also mentions that Vandham, he goes missing after, or he leaves. He leaves on a new expedition after, you know, establishing a new city, and his descendants don't return till later, which I could very easily see being like an endgame thing, like with Adam, you know, in the original Torna. And we hear he goes on a mission and we see him sinking the ship with Pyre in it. I can imagine it ended in a very similar way to that. It's basically, it's setting itself up to be another Torna, and that's going to be fantastic because Torna was incredible, so I'm so hyped.
Yeah, it's just going to be a ton of fun, I'm sure. I don't doubt there's just going to be like a ton of just like fan service in the sense of look at all these returning characters, aren't they cool? And I'm so here for it.
Yeah. It's like...
Oh, it's going to be so good. Oh.
It's like bringing in all the fan service, but at the same time, we're still assuming that the 7 founders who we're playing as, or the 6 founders even, are probably original characters, and it's still doing new stuff whilst delving even deeper into the fan service at the same time. It's like, they seem to know exactly what they're doing, which shouldn't surprise us at this point, but it's going to be crazy. And I mean, we've got Raid 3 to experience next, and I'm really excited for that even, but this is going to be another level, so cannot wait.
I cannot wait, and yeah, like we sort of mentioned briefly earlier, can't wait for any sort of music they bring in, what kind of remixes are they going to bring, because, man, I'm still riding the high of Torna's remix of Gormot, like...
Yeah. Oh, they're so jazzy.
I'm still riding that, so God knows what they're going to do now.
We are in for a treat, that's for sure. But, well, we've been going for a while here. I don't even want to know how many times the length of the 20-second clip this recording is going to be when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
But is there any final thoughts you want to say about what we saw, or what you think there might be, or any general thoughts on Wave 4?
Just that I'm really looking forward to it. There's still clearly a lot of mystery in what exactly is going to happen, but, you know, that gives us plenty of time to think about it and see what's going to come. Just it looks really good, and yeah, I think it's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. It's going to be a ridiculous year for, I mean, all things Nintendo, to be honest. We've got Breath of the Wild and that as well, but just Xenoblade alone, that would be enough for me for this to be a stellar year, so we're in for a treat. But that's it for this video. We could ramble forever, but I'll end things off here before we pass the hour mark. But thank you all of you for watching this video. Of course, you can stay tuned to us. We're going to be doing more content on Xenoblade. We'll be breaking down our thoughts on Wave 3 once we've played it in next month's main podcast, first Sunday of the month. And we do regular monthly podcasts at the beginning of every month, as well as extra videos. So when we do get more information on Xenoblade Wave 4, we'll of course be analysing that more and breaking it down once we get to play it. So stay tuned to BunchaJokahs for all of that and other Nintendo coverage. Like I said, Breath of the Wild 2, Tears of the Kingdom, we've got stuff to say about that as well. It's going to be mad. So you can check...
it's going to be so fun.
It really is. So you can check us out here on BunchaJokahs on YouTube, or audio-only versions of discussions on places like Spotify and other podcasting sites. But Kai, where else can people find you at?
They could find me on my YouTube, Fascurreyn. It's going to be somewhere in the description or something. Yeah, my Xenoblade 3 playthrough is actually, the main game is finished now, still uploading daily. By the time this comes out, most of my post-game / DLC adventures will be out as well. So we're coming to the point where those videos will stop coming out because there's no more content to cover. Until Wave 3 comes out, that is, which again will be the day before we posted this, I suppose. So yeah, it's just, that's all there if you want to see my adventure with that. And then on Twitch, I'm playing through Inazuma 11. So if you like that game, like, who are you? Like, there's only like 20 of us that like that series. Where have you come from? But yeah, I'm over there playing that, and I guess it's a shame because the day before this video comes out is when I'll be streaming playing the Wave 3 DLC.
Yes,
So,
but it'll be on YouTube.
If you want to watch the
it?
VOD,
So,
I guess.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, of course, with Inazuma 11, level 5 is making a resurgence, so, perfect timing.
We will talk about that in the next monthly podcast a lot.
We absolutely will. There's going to be a lot to unpack. It's going to be a long video, I'm sure. But also, of course, thanks to our friend Samm, who is our graphic designer, makes all our logo and our thumbnails and all of that. So thank you, Samm, once again. There'll be a link to his Twitter in the description below. And we will see you guys in the next video. Take care and goodbye.
See ya.